Hi again, it's Craig Hughes from 90-Second Website Builder. This is a video about video. In fact, this is a video that is by request. Someone asked me this question today about putting video on your website that's not a YouTube video, because I do have a tutorial there that shows you how to put a YouTube video on your page, which is extremely simple, but it's also simple to do even if you're using video that's not YouTube based. However, there are some significant differences, and so I'm going to show you a few of those. Under the Media tab in the toolbox, you'll see a lot of different types of video tools. The first one is called Flash. And use this tool like any other tool you would use in 90-second. You simply drag it into place onto your canvas. What you would need to do then is double click and then locate a Flash movie. This particular tool plays Flash movies. So when I go to find a video on my computer, I would need to find what's called an SWF file, or a shockwave file they used to call it. And as long as I have a movie, a shockwave movie or a Flash movie, I can use it in this particular object. So I would select it, and if I want to change any of the settings, like maybe I want to loop this movie, I can do that here. And that's pretty much it. We're done. The good thing about Flash movies is that you can preview them on the canvas, as you can see, because they work a lot like an image does. And they're also very low in memory, so Flash is easy to work with. However, Flash is also not compatible with mobile devices like iPads, so you have to be careful how you use Flash. But this is how you do it. Now I'm going to preview this so you can see here's that Flash movie playing on my website. And you'll notice it's going in a loop. So that's why the bird keeps flying. So that's how you would embed a Flash movie. So now let's close this and let's look at another tool. You'll notice below the Flash tool, there's one called the Flash Video Player. Slightly different, but again, we're working with Flash. And in this case, there's two differences. One is this object, you'll notice, creates a player, or a skin, if you will, that you can put your Flash movie into. So the website will display the movie, but gives the user these controls down here, a play button and a volume button, and anything that you would find in a player. However, there's another difference. If you're going to use the Flash Video Player tool, you need to be able to have your movie in the format of an FLV file. That's also a Flash video file. So that's a common Flash video extension, and so if you had a video in that extension, with that extension I should say, then that's what you would choose and it would play that type of video. So that's how you work with Flash or SWF files. I'm going to delete these from the canvas and let's move on, because there's other ways to put video on your website. Now I'm going to talk about these next three together. There's the QuickTime option, there's the Real Player option, and we could even use a Windows Media Player video if we wanted to. Now, these are all different, and yet they have some similarities. Let's talk about the differences between these. First of all, what's different is if you're going to use a QuickTime movie on your website, this tool will play any movie that is a .movie file, or a QuickTime movie, a .mov you would call it. So you would load in your .mov file, you would change your settings, loop, auto start, whatever you want, and then this tool would play a .movie file. This is the same idea. It works exactly the same way with Real Player, only instead of a .movie file, you would be loading in a Real Player file, which is sometimes called a RAM file or a .ram. But Real Video also has other extensions, .rm. As long as your source video is in this format, then this is the player you could use. And the third one is the Windows Media Player. So again, works the same way as long as you have a video that is in this format. And for Windows Media, it's usually a .wma file. Windows Media Player also plays WAV files, which are audio, MP3s, audios. But this is the basic same idea. So these three, even though they're different formats, are easy to use. But there's one thing they have in common. They are going to require you to store your video on your hosting account. And you're going to be actually playing the video on your website from your website. Now that's different than YouTube and some of these others, because there the video is stored on the YouTube server and your website is just streaming it from that server. With Flash, you're also storing the video on your server or on your hosting account, but Flash videos have a tendency to be very small and compressed, and they don't take up a lot of space unless you had a huge movie file. But Flash is usually pretty easy to store in your web hosting account because it's like an image. These formats have a tendency to be rather large, and so you want to check with your hosting service and see how much bandwidth you would use, because if you were going to play a .movie file and use the QuickTime tool, you got to make sure it's not a huge movie, because .movie files, they can be very, very cumbersome and huge, and they might even load slow depending on what kind of a hosting service you have. One more thing I'll say about these three formats. For people who are looking at your website from a Macintosh, they're going to be able to probably view your QuickTime movie because Mac users all have QuickTime, just like Windows users are going to mostly all have Windows Media Player. But the opposite is true as well. If a Windows person visiting your website, somebody on a PC, doesn't have the QuickTime player, they're not going to be able to view your movie. And if a Mac user is at your website and you're using Windows Media Player for your format, if they don't have the Windows Media Player, they're not going to be able to play your video unless their version of QuickTime is compatible, and that stuff changes all the time, so it gets very confusing. Real players, same idea, only it's even less common. So one of the disadvantages of using these players, or rather these formats, is that they're not compatible with everybody, and so it's a little bit difficult. And the other disadvantage is, again, you would be hosting these movie files, the source files, on your web hosting account, which may be fine for you, especially if they're small movies. But let's look at some other options. So we talked about Flash, we talked about the other three, and then of course there's the YouTube option. Now I made a separate video about that because YouTube is the most common way for people to put a video on their website, and I'll show you very quickly because I don't want to bore you with too many videos about this. But to do this, you simply paste in the address of the YouTube video. So if I was to go to YouTube, which I'll do here, and I find a video that I want to put on my website, I would go up to the YouTube URL right here of this video. I would copy it, and then I would paste it into the 90-second website builder interface and simply click OK. Again, I can change the settings if I want. And that's very simple. And again, here's the video and audio, of course, playing, but it's streaming from YouTube. It's not being stored on my web hosting account. It's being stored at YouTube, but it can still be used on my website. So again, that's how we do video. But this tutorial is about how to do this without having to use YouTube. What if you don't have a YouTube account or you don't want to use a YouTube video? Well, there are other video sharing sites, lots of them. And in fact, a common one is Vimeo. There's others, Vidler, and of course there's lots of other video sharing sites. Well, you can do the same thing with any of these, any videos that allow you to embed their videos into your website. Here's how you do it. And this is true for all of them. This would be the same for Vidler or any other video sharing site. I happen to be at Vimeo, where I would go get the embed code. So if I wanted to show this video about this card trick, I would get the embed code just like this. And all I'm going to do is copy this. I'm selecting it, and then I'm hitting copy. And then I go back to 90-second website builder. Now, you'll notice, of course, there's no Vimeo tool, but that's okay. What we're going to use is just the generic HTML tool, because what I'm doing is I'm pasting HTML code onto my page. So with the HTML tool, I drag it out here, I double click, and I'm going to simply paste that Vimeo code just like that. I don't have to do anything else. If I want to create a description, I can, but you don't have to. When I click OK, it's done. Now to preview it, I'll need to hit F5 to see what my website looks like online. And there's the Vimeo video. All I've done is paste the embed code that Vimeo gave me. And I can press play and watch this video on my website just like any other video. So the same would be true for any video sharing site. So as you can see, you've got a lot of video options. I recommend using a video sharing site, Vimeo, YouTube, or some other third party, so that you're not using up a lot of bandwidth from your own hosting account. But again, if you want to use Flash, or you want to use QuickTime, Real Player, or Windows Media Player, of course those two tools are also available to you. Okay, hope that helps. Thanks for watching.